#1 ranked Yale versus #3 ranked Harvard.
The crews are now being polled. Yale and Harvard polled. Flag is up. They're off. All right.
Already, the pattern is the same. Harvard's trying to get in 4 strokes to Yale's 3.
Yep, and no misstrokes either crew. A little bit of roll under this bridge, but they both handled it. Both crews rowing high.
Yep.
Coming out of the bridge.
20 seconds into it, Yale starting to move.
Harvard at 43. Yale still in its high strokes as well, but not as high, 39, and Yale has already moved out to what looks like a third of a length. Early to tell. Harvard's got to respond to that, and they are. So now it's just mano for a few miles here, for 4 miles.
Well, coming up on a minute into it, Yale's got about a third of a length. Cox and Vlad is looking over at Harvard, telling his guys where they are. Just about now, the focus should be internal still. Only the coxswain should look out and give them some reassurance where they are, but athletes are just looking straight ahead and focusing on the rhythm.
Harvard at 39, Yale at 36 and a half.
It's up to half a length now for Yale.
Yeah, Harvard had pushed in a little bit, and then Yale pushed right back out again to that half length. And this race, Andy, as you know, is under a little bit different rules than U.S. rowing rules, so there's a 2-minute breakage period.
30 seconds to go for that.
So 30 seconds to go for that. So that's a good deal longer than a normal race. International rowing is 100 meters, which is almost nothing.
Well, Yale continues to have a half a length lead.
Yep. We're further back on Yale. So the view was slightly different, but
you mean the launch, not we
launch.
Being Harvard.
No, I'm
fans.
speaking of the launch. And I sort of see the Harvard bow ball on the Yale 6-man. So that
Yale, that's 2 minutes now. It's official race, as you've mentioned, and slowly Yale keeps moving out. Lenny Jenkins at 7, backing up Dan at stroke.
The crew's now going through the half-mile mark.
2:15 roughly, and 2:18.
2:16, yeah. And the Harvard bow somewhere between 7 and 6 now. So it's good. And there, Clark Dean just took a big look over. Has to turn his head quite a bit to take that look. That's back to rowing.
Yeah,
they've got to keep, like the 2V race or 3V race. You know, they've just got to keep pressure on.
Well, you can see Vlad here being very emphatic with his calls. He pops up to take his steering, then he takes a look over at the Harvard bowman, and he likes what he sees.
It's got to like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And Yale has just knocked the cadence down. Now they've where they want to be. They're at 33, 34.
You know, this wind is a challenge because you don't get any of the nice resistance that you get from a headwind, which can tell you where your blade is in time and space. Here, things can be a little bit looser. The water's still a little rolly, despite everybody's best efforts to give them the flattest water possible. And I have to say, Harvard's doing a good job of keeping their bowman on the coxswain of Yale.
Yeah.
And Yale's doing a good job of maintaining their lead here and not letting Harvard move back in and catch some momentum. We're about 3.5 minutes into the race now.
Yeah, but we've got, I think what we're going to see throughout the race is Harvard overstroking, but they've gotten themselves down to 36.
Slowly,
36 is still a big number for 4 miles.
It sure is. And Vlad, the coxswain, is slowly walking up the Harvard bow deck. Harvard coxswain is very loud. We can hear him from over here, even with the headphones on. They're doing a good job.
Well,
they're
hanging in there.
Yes,
they're
they are.
hanging in there, but it's a long race, as we say. And we think as we're coming up on the mile mark, you know, behind us you can see Coast Guard Academy again, and then some dry docks.
Yeah, it looks very long still. I know that's what they want to do. Big, tall Lenny Jenkins and Tom Digby and Charlie Elways. If they can stay long behind Dan, that's a real good sign for Yale.
Yep, and there they go through. And so we've really, more or less, bow and coxswain for the last quarter mile or so. And now we're in what may be the bouncier water of the
Yep.
race. We're in the launch and we're rocking a bit. That may be reflected in your video screen, and it seems Yale is doing well with it. They've just stepped out. And
each crew has to finish. You know, the water is going to be rough. You are going to get knocked around, but you can, if you need to minimize the gunnel roll at the back end. You got to keep it very stable. It looks like Yale has been able to do that and starting to get one length over Harvard.
In that roll,
Yep.
they took that last deck to sort of close the deal. And of course, what they dearly want to do is get a quarter length or so of open, the separation that really allows them to be comfortable.
Yeah. Jack Lopez at 4 is rowing exceptionally long to the back end. He's really setting the shell, keeping the pressure on the pin. Doing a very nice job there of translating that rhythm from the stern 4 up to the bow 3.
Yeah, and he sits a bit lower in the boat than the other guys, but big, thick torso.
Strong man. Harvard, to their credit,
Harvard
right
coxswain
there.
is speaking again. It seems like they're trying to take some sort of move.
It's critical
right
here.
At 36.
Right. I'm sure Yale expected this kind of a race, and it's important they don't get frustrated with. I mean, they're throwing some good power at Harvard, and they do have a lead.
Yeah, they're comfortable, you know. But so Harvard has just made a move, and that's gotten them maybe a quarter of a deck, you know, half a deck, whatever.
This profile is similar to what we saw in the 3V race.
Yes.
Right, where the Yale 3V sat up about a length on Harvard before Harvard made their move through. I do like the straight-ahead focus of the Yale oarsmen, particularly the middle 5 or 6. Nobody's looked. I haven't caught one Yale guy looking out of the boat yet.
Yeah, well, they've got pretty good peripheral vision. They're down at, they're right where they want to be, 33, 33 and a half. That seems to be the right place to be if you can do it.
I just saw the Harvard 6-man. He took a nice crane of his neck, and that didn't really help because now Yale does have a little bit of open water.
Yeah, I don't know where they were synced together, but it generally doesn't help.
Water is very bouncy here. About 7 minutes.
Yeah, just over 7 minutes. We're a mile and a half in. And now Yale has opened up a little bit of open water, and probably the worst water of the course is from here to the next mark.
I'm just looking at the Yale guys. They're just focused forward, man. They know what they have to do, and they're just trying to do it. They're relying completely on Vlad to tell them where they are and what they need to do next, or what marker is coming up. But very impressive. Now they do have a little bit of open water. 7 minutes and 40 seconds into the race.
Yep. Clark Dean just took another big look, and now it looks like. Yep, they're in a 10.
Yeah, they're fighting. Yep.
But no change to the cadence. They're still at 35 and a half, 36. Yep, they're fighting and maybe close up that open water. But it's a tough way to go down a race course when your base pace isn't as fast as your competition. So.
Well, I'm very impressed by the Yale finishes here. You know, it is important to keep the boat stable, and occasionally, as you saw, the blades smack a little bit, but the gunnels keep running out. I mean, in our bumpy conditions, you're going to slap around a little bit, but you want the momentum to maintain to be maintained horizontally.
Yep, looks like a lot of feet out rowing to me.
Yep.
A lot of pressure all the way into the finish.
Well, we're coming into the shade of Mammocoke Hill.
Harvard bouncing around right now. A little bit of bouncing from Clark Dean. Bouncing in the hull, moving from side to side, the blades banging around, and that has cost them.
And now Yale is starting to put some open water into it. You can hear a little bit of shouting from the Yale crew. They're getting excited about it. They know where they're at now, 2 miles to go, 9 minutes down.
2 miles down a minute, and you know, just Harvard did not handle that tough water very well. So here they are. Now they've got a half length of open behind. You know, so Yale is right where they can all see. They don't need any help from their coxswain.
You know, Dan Williamson, the first-year stroke, is just cool as a cucumber over there. He's just doing his thing.
Another starboard stroke. I think Steve just doesn't want to re-rig boats. He's got it down, and he's not going to frig around. Okay, so we are now, the water's going to quiet out here a little bit.
Although this, you know, the wind is a little swirly in here. The sub base and the shade of the Mammocoke Hill. It's the water's not getting better. I keep thinking there's going to be a better section.
Yeah, well, I thought before, you know, right after the 2 mile mark, when Harvard was really wrestling with the water. They've now got their blades clear again. And they're basically, there we just heard the Harvard coxswain have to go now. So knows how important it is to get around, get to this 1.5 mile mark where it's a straightaway thereafter.
The Yale coxswain, Vlad, is doing a tremendous job of just putting his starboard puddles right in the way of the Harvard shell.
Yeah, and it's a very good point, Andy. Yeah. I haven't seen the referee doing any steering of them, which makes me think that the Harvard shell might be too far west. Oh, we're just hearing.
Well, you know, if the referee's not calling you, then you're doing good.
Yeah. So we're hearing noise, but I'm not exactly sure where that noise was coming from.
Harvard putting on a big push here, 1.5 miles to go.
They have to put a push here. They know it. Got to keep pressure up. Got to hope for something good to happen. They're now up at 36.5.
You know, they're not letting Leo get away. They completely dominate the race.
They've closed it up a little bit.
And now look, observe how far apart the hulls are now.
Get Jeff to bring it back. We don't want to go ahead of them. Am I still? Yeah, still on here. So Harvard did a big push at that 1.5 mile mark. From our angle, they tried to close it, and they might have closed it, but Yale has slipped right back out again on them.
If our cameraman could get the stroke for Yale and Harvard in the same frame, you can see Dan Williamson, the Yale stroke, just
very relaxed,
very smooth.
Shoulders back at the finish.
Yeah, very thorough. You know, when you're backed up by such powerful athletes, it's good to be that way, but it's good to be that way to start as well. And that allows the powerful guys behind you to do their thing as well. Just very impressed. I mean, a first-year guy, but that doesn't mean he's a typical freshman that rode a little bit in high school. He's a lot of experience.
Am I correct in saying that he was a medalist in the U23s for New Zealand? Is that?
He's got a lot of experience.
Yeah, I think he was a New Zealand medalist in the straight four. Tough event. Okay, so we are now in some better water. And Yale is pushed back out again, just guessing because our angle isn't quite right, that they're got a half a length of water between them. So they've had more, but they've also been closed up more recently. And they're now pushing out. Down at 33 for Yale. And Harvard at 35.5, where they've been most of this race.
They're just doing a great job here. It's just beautiful to see. If you're a Yale fan, the water is nice, and finishing every stroke nice and relaxed.
So Yale going through now, the 1 mile to go, 13:44 unofficially, of course. Harvard through 5 seconds later, 5.7 seconds later.
I mean, Orlando Nixon, the bowman, right? Just looks so long. Just hanging on the oar, taking it all the way to the bow, letting the boat move a little bit.
Very long. Nice job with the outside shoulder, relaxed.
Yeah, a little hiccup there.
Little hiccup in the Harvard boat here. Clark Dean banging his oar a bit. That these stiff shells, that ricochets back, of course.
It's not like these crews have spent 2 or 3 weeks like in the old days up here getting used to the unique conditions here on the Thames. They just flew in from California, basically, and had a few rows. They couldn't do too much hard work, but they're handling it very well. And if the basic rhythm is there, you can withstand some of those bobbles.
Oh yeah, and they're strong kids. They can pull back from them. So we're now looking at about a length of open water, I'd say, as we're in between, 3/4 of a mile to go.
Coming up on 15 minutes.
Harvard still at 35.5. Yale just a tad lower now, 32.5. They're able to really relax and stretch it out. Sort of a great place to be in a 4-miler.
Three of these guys, the bow three for the Yale 8, were all in the JV last year that won the 3-miler. So this is a new thrill for them, being part of the 4-miler. And they're doing a very good job of keeping the gunnels stable and just helping out Dan find the rhythm that they can just lock into and repeat over and over again.
Well, it shows really a deep program when you can keep moving people around between your boats and getting them stronger. Okay, so now we're going through these stakes and flags that represent the half-mile to go. Yale 16 minutes, 0.3 seconds. Harvard at 6:06, so we've roughly the same distance apart, roughly 6 seconds, again, slightly less than 6 seconds. And that's what we've seen over the last mile of racing.
Well, the difference is length. If you look at the Yale crew,
yep,
they're just rowing a little longer in the water. That adds up.
And
over 2,000 meters.
Would you say if these guys were doing 5K or 6K erg pieces, would they be? Is our guess is they would row lower than the Harvard guys? That's just sort of through the system that they.
You're asking me to say things that I don't know about. I don't know. I'm not going to say it even if I knew the answer. No, I think they're aggressive. They showed tremendous physical capacity on the erg, but where you want to be special is on the water. I mean, you have to do the work.
They got lots of length, and, and they're good and strong on the erg. So it's just. Okay, Harvard is not giving up. I'd have to say they're, they're still maining. Well, they've just brought it up to 37, so they're going to make their push now, and they have to. Coming up.
You know, Digby, Lopez, Elways, Jenkins, the whole crew just looks the same. There's you can't tell that they're fatigued. You know they are, but they're rowing exactly the same as they were in the first mile. They're very impressive. They know what they have to do, and they have the rhythm to keep on doing it. They're not moving away from Harvard.
No, I think Harvard is perhaps closed it a little, but
And in a dual race, you don't need to.
No, we talked about it in the last race when it was the other way around. And, they're doing the right thing. Don't make any mistakes.
Now the upstream record is 18:35, and
18 right here.
Yeah, it was set in 2015 by Yale. So we're getting close.
Getting close to that.
I think it's going to be fun. I think both crews might break the record. We're at 18:12 now, unofficially.
Robert's making a push.
Yale's sprinting now. 18:20. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to break the record.
That's Yale now up to
26, 27.
And any times we have here
they
are
got
official.
18:30.
They broke the record.
And Harvard basically tied the record unofficially. Phenomenal.
Red flag's up, and the boats are off.
All right, 3 miles later, let's get a winner here.
3 miles later, and by Andy, you talk about the parallax. From our view, it looks like they spotted Harvard a deck at the start.
Well, it just looks like that. As we talked about before, the finish line and the starting line are parallel with one another.
Right.
So you're just seeing here, looks like Harvard has a few seats, but let's wait until the first marker before we decide.
Absolutely have to wait. And I was just commenting that the stake boats look that way as well, but they're starting. I'd have to say this Harvard crew looks a bit smoother than its 3V predecessor, but also rowing high. 41 right now, still in some starting strokes.
They are moving out slowly on Yale at the moment. They're making a strong bid to get out and handle this water in a little more relaxed manner where they can see the backs of the Yale crew.
Yep, so they are moving, and they are still, let's see, now they're down to 38, and Yale has come down to their race pace, which we've seen before is a bit lower.
Well, this is the way Yale wanted to start this. I mean, these two crews have been very, very close all year, as we just discussed, and Harvard's trying to make a strong statement. They have open water now.
They do. They're just starting to move out, and they are still overstroking Yale by a bit, and maybe just doing a little better job handling this tailwind, taking advantage of it.
Well, they're only 500 meters into it. They're only 10% of the race done, and they're making a strong statement, but that means there's 90% of the race left to go. So we'll see.
Right, absolutely. So you can see behind us the New London shore going by a marina here, and Harvard is continuing to move out. I think they've got maybe a quarter open water.
Yeah, with the following wind, the athletes probably feel no wind on their back or their chest either. They're sort of ready to sweat. It is a hot day. The sun is bearing down on us out here. And everybody's wearing some white shirts, or just about everybody in the Harvard crew. But we'll see what happens here as we go through. It's only 2 minutes down.
2 minutes down, 2:15, and we're rolling through the buoys that aren't entirely active, but roughly represent a half mile into the race. And
So it's about a 4-second lead for Harvard at this point. And I have to say, Harvard's got a little more energy on the drive.
Yeah.
Yale's trying to row longer and lower, but they need to stop the bleeding right in here.
We're going through. And the water here is, I think both crews are handling it quite well. But
yeah, there's a huge
it's
wake
bumpy.
now coming over from starboard side. It's going to hit Harvard right now. They handled it very well, and we're a little closer to the Harvard crew in our announcing launch, and you can hear the finishes. It's impressive. Sort of a finish noise as well as a nice breathing, exhale, very rhythmical, and it's working for them.
So I think it looks to me like right now Harvard is no longer moving. Yale's just handling the wake as we're talking.
Yeah, Harvard likes where they're at, though. I have to
They've got a view. It's a good place to be.
Yep.
You got a view, and you're going to get some warning. We can very clearly hear the Harvard exhale. Give me your thoughts on that, Andy. You know, the Washington crews make a lot of noise in the exhale. I haven't ever been to an elite regatta where I hear that. Is this a good thing? Or
well,
is it just
you shouldn't make it a Hollywood thing where you're doing it for show to impress the locals, but it does. Anything that helps you sustain rhythm is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And it can become a thing that the crew really likes, or it might just be 2 or 3 people. I remember some of the Steve Gladstone's Brown crews around the turn of the century, around 2000 or so, would make a tremendous amount of noise at the finish. And not in the battle rattle in the oarlock, but rather just with their breathing, snorting, whatever you want to call it. It was very emphatic.
Okay.
And it's working for Harvard right now as we come into the shade of Mammoth Hill.
Now at the 2 mile mark. We just heard the Harvard coxswain asking for more.
Yeah, they're through in 4:16 or so, and Yale is through now in 4:26.
26, yeah.
Now it's important they don't get too excited. I mean, it is a significant lead at this point.
That's a lot of noise. Yeah. I agree. A lot of noise, but they've got a nice view, and the job of David Fleming now in the stroke seat is just to keep the rhythm. Not be fancy. Just keep the rhythm and keep pushing them back. And the water gets a little better here.
Now in this east lane, we talked about it in the 3V race, where the east lane is quite narrow, and again, it's going to be incumbent upon the Harvard coxswain to do a good job and get through there. If he doesn't get through and one of the oars snags, that's a huge orange buoy to hit, and that would significantly alter the pattern of the race right now, which is all Harvard at this point.
Yeah, it's now, Andy, I'm noticing this is the second Yale crew that is starboard stroked of the day. Is this just coincidence?
Yeah, coincidence. You just pick the best stroke man you can. I know that Coach Gladstone and Coach Gennaro have had a hard time separating this JV from the 3V that we just saw, that dominated most of the race until a nice Harvard sprint put them ahead. And that's usually great for the 3V. Means the 3V is going to be pretty good, but when you can't separate out, it's a little bit of a struggle at the higher ranked crew.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're seeing some of the issues maybe that were there all year that they overcame successfully at the IRA. Maybe now they're coming to fruition here. And now here we go. If we can get a camera shot of the Harvard crew making it through this slightly narrower portal, if you will.
So Harvard now has reduced their rate of striking to 33. And that is like a no chances version of the race here, that they're going to try to stretch it out at an efficient lower cadence. And, looks like plenty of room on this side and enough room on the other. And Yale now coming through. So we're probably looking at almost 2 lengths here of open water. And
well, it's clear from the start that Harvard wanted to impose their will, as they say, and they did that with a very aggressive start. And once they got a little bit of water on Yale, they just kept opening up.
They were able at the race pace to open up strongly early.
The worst water was at the beginning as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best approach to bad water is just to blast right through it and not be too concerned about it.
Yep.
Yale rowing a little lower, a little bit longer.
Yale is, Harvard's now down at 33, I have them, and Yale at 33 and a half, 34, so they're now matching. And it actually surprises me to see Harvard rowing this low, because I don't think they do that often.
You're in a commanding position now, if you're a Harvard fan, and they're doing what you said.
Yeah,
you know, no chances.
Take no chances.
Sure.
It's a 2-boat race.
Yeah.
Nobody gets credit for, winning by more.
Right. It's not a time trial. There's no other crews in the event. You just have to beat the other guy.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just joining us, you're watching the JV race, and the last you saw of the Yale JV winning the bronze medal and sprinting through the Harvard crew to get on the medal stand, or the medal beach, as it were, at the IRA, and then you flash forward 6 days to this, you're like, wow, what a strange sport this is. You know, nothing's consistent, and the distance is. This is a dramatic turnaround.
But we did talk about earlier, we're going from 2K to 3 miles, which is a substantial difference. And, I know, Steve, these Yale crews do a lot of work over distance when you're home in Housatonic, but it's a little different in the racing, and different people adapt.
Yep. Well, Harvard was probably pretty angry about being shot out of the medals at the IRA.
I think they probably were.
And particularly
probably pretty pleased after winning the sprints.
Yeah, and being shut out by their arch rival, too.
Yeah.
It's not like it was another school that did it. It had to be Yale. Like, that's the worst. So they're having a nice bit of revenge here, although I will say they haven't really moved away anymore, and there's no need to do it.
I'm just taking a look here. So, we're at 9-10 seconds, which is really what you caught them at a mile ago.
Yeah. Water is getting a little nicer, a little less of a helpful tailwind.
Harvard rowing right at 33.
Yeah.
So at Yale at 34. So it's tough when you got that much behind in your Yale as the coxswain. You've got to be encouraging.
Yep.
Can't make it up though. You got to.
Well, now they're steering Harvard just slightly. They're steering them.
Referee is moving Harvard to the west, it seems.
Yes.
And the coxswain acknowledging the referee by putting up his hand. British coxswain, they get good at not fooling around too much with the referees.
So, Greg, you rowed in the varsity at least your last 2 years, right? If not,
I rowed in the JV for 2 years and the varsity my senior year.
All right. So when you were a senior going out for this boat race, did you know the results of the JV race when you were down at the Gold Star Bridge?
No, we did not. And we, at that time it was a tough time for Yale rowing, so it was sort of a different atmosphere here.
Sure.
But no, he didn't know. And I think, I don't know whether these guys knew their vote in the 3V race, so that would have certainly psyched them up.
Right.
Um,
Well, I'm just wondering, you know, okay, here's this race that was a dramatic turnaround from last week, and
Yeah.
maybe Harvard would say, well, we're just reasserting where we were at the sprints. We are the superior crew. We had a little blip at the IRA, and now we're back. So you wonder if there's any implications for the varsity race coming up at 4:30.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's in the varsity race, unlike these two, the Harvard crew, nobody in that Harvard crew has beaten Yale.
Interesting.
And
Right.
I think that during those long years when it was the other way around, it was a significant advantage to Harvard.
Just in confidence.
Just in confidence to be facing a 4-mile race at near racing cadence. Okay, we have just gone through the half-mile to go mark, which are stakes, and it looks like Harvard, I didn't take a time, I apologize, it looks like Harvard stretched it out just a little here. Yale's closer to shore, maybe gets a little better water in this little section of the racing.
Better water, maybe a little less of the tailwind.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
You know, it's
Oh, it
negligible.
is. More steering of the Harvard crew. I think the Harvard coxswain just as soon slide as far over towards Yale as he could.
Okay.
And just we noticed there, you can see that a couple of times, Harvard blades catching on the rollers that aren't big, but are enough bigger than they are on the Charles River.
Well, we're coming in at 12 and a half minutes down, and Harvard's still in command.
In command, now down to 32 and a half. Not wild about the chatter coming out of the Harvard crew, but you can understand their enthusiasm. It's hard to beat Yale by this much. Yale right at 33.
Well, this is, if everything holds true, this is going to stop the Yale win streak in this event at 2.
At 2.
And this will be
Back
the last
into
4
play.
years, Harvard 2 and Yale 2,
Yep.
which
Which
is,
is-
you know,
And
exciting.
Two,
It makes
two
an exciting
crews that
contest.
are on the top of Eastern rowing and in the top 4 of U.S. rowing. So it's an exciting match racing. Great way to end the year.
Harvard's moving out just a hair now, putting
Yeah,
a little
Harvard is-
flourish on it.
Water a little messy now under those Harvard blades, so I don't think they're going to be too. You can see a little banging going on
Mm-hmm.
as they pass a very silent rock.
Well, we saw a very dramatic race in the 3V race, a very dramatic race yesterday for the James P. Snyder Cup.
Yeah.
And this one is a
Whoa,
little
whoa!
more.
Harvard just caught a crab there, and they have plenty of room to catch and recover. But I think that's going to stop the chatter in the boat. And get down to business, cross the line.
I have unofficially 14-10.
Yep.
And about 12-second victory, 14-22 for Yale.
So the real damage was done in that first mile.
Yes.
And then
Right to the Here we go. The flag is up from referee Ron Chen, and we have a start.
okay, we are, as you can see, ahead of the crews. And we're letting them come up on us, both crews in their starting strokes, both because of our angle and the fact that the course takes a little bit of a jog in the half-mile mark. It's pretty hard to predict who's ahead at this point.
Not surprising. The crews are fairly level. Remember, the finish line and the start line are parallel to one another, and our perspective on the launch might give you a little parallax here or there. So far, it's even, maybe Harvard half a seat.
It's funny, I thought Harvard rode a bit higher off the start, 43-44 to Yale's 40. As Harvard came off those high strokes, I thought Yale made a little move. I wouldn't call the difference between the crews right now.
No, 37, 37 and a half for Yale. They're
And-
looking to row it a little bit lower and really
And Harvard still at 40.
crank it past the pin.
And So it looks tactically Harvard's going to throw a little bit in here in the first half mile and see if they can hang.
Slowly, Yale is creeping out just a hair.
Yep, Yale's got a nice rhythm, good length.
I'm really looking at Nick Rusher in the bow, rowing very long, very horizontally.
Yep.
Doing a nice job just setting the boat up. And, of course, John O'Winter has so much experience from this race. He raced twice this distance as a freshman. And, yes, Yale is slowly moving out.
Slowly moving out. We're going to come, this video launch comes quite close to the sub-base, so we swing behind the crews temporarily.
Yale rowing longer, Harvard rowing a little bit higher. We're approaching the first half mile. If the camera can see that, the gap where the Harvard coxswain has to steer is quite narrow.
Yeah.
And I hope he makes it.
Yeah, this is these buoys move around. They're a little tricky for the race committee to get in place with the tides. And Harvard Kid is doing a good job. He is through without contact on the buoys. Excellent.
He did a great job, and it looks like Harvard is definitely sticking with Yale now. It's about 2-seat advantage for Yale. They're almost stroke for stroke.
Yep, they both come down to looks like 37.
Yep, Harvard a little bit higher still. And now Yale looks like they've taken a little push through the half-mile mark. We're about 2.5 minutes into it.
Yep.
And Yale continues to move. Definitely rowing lower than Harvard. That's where they want to be. That's where they like to be.
Yep. Yale at 34.5, Harvard at 37.
Coach Phil Bruner runs the show here at the 3V level along with assistant coach Mike Gennaro. And, of course, it's overseen by Steve Gladstone, who we'll talk quite a bit about a little bit later. And this is what they want to do. They want to row, get up a little bit, row a little bit lower, keep their eye on Harvard, take a move when necessary.
Yep, and I think Harvard's game here has to be to just see how hard they can go and see if they can push back into them.
They're not letting Yale just slip away too easily. And Yale is trying to do that for sure.
So we are looking at roughly a half-length lead here, and from here on the course is 100% straight, almost due north up the Thames River.
I really like what Freddie Elways and Will Powers are doing at 6 and 7 behind the stroke Nicola. It's they're just laying down a really good rhythm and giving him support for what he wants to do. And Yale is moving out now. Basically, Woods, Connell, the coxswain on the Harvard 2-seat and moving up to the Harvard bowman. He's looking over, giving a long look.
So Yale is, without a question, making a move now. You can see across from these boats the coaching launches that are running up the other side of the river. And
coming up into the 1 mile mark, Woods, Connell moving up. Slowly, it's not a dramatic push, but Harvard needs to do their job right now and stay in contact.
Yale now slipping down. They've done a nice job holding or extending their lead a little and still have slipped it down to 33.5, 34. So they've done a good job sort of spacing it out.
So 4.5 minutes down as we approach the 1 mile mark.
Going through the mile marks, and it's 3/4 of a length between these two crews. Harvard remains overstroking by 3 beats.
Woods now taking a look. He's moving up on the canvas. And he's banging the side of the shell, getting his guys excited. I think he wants open water. They are responding in the Bulldog shell in the west lane.
These boats, these two crews, they're rowing identical equipment, both shells built in Germany. It seems to be now the standard for the heavyweight crews in the U.S. And
to their credit,
I think
Harvard
same oars. Harvard
has not let Yale slip and work that open water, although it's close.
Close to a full length here.
Well, this is a brave effort from the Harvard Crimson, but if they're going to win this race, they need to change something right now. I mean, it's a credit to them for holding on to the speed of this silver medal IRA crew, but they need to change their position somewhat and set them up for the close.
Yep, and they have upped their rating a little. It's so they are definitely taking a different tactic here. They're rowing now at 38, 39, And they've pushed back into the Yale shell a little. We almost had a full length, and now it's deck on deck. One has to think that the Yale crew rowing lower and with a very relaxed stroke man has got more in the tank.
Yeah, and he hasn't looked over once. Now, you can use your peripheral vision behind those UA sunglasses, but he's just eyes forward, just cranking the rate, just working the rhythm, doing a nice job. It's Woods who's looking around, and he's being steered by the referee. I think he's coming a little bit over to the east side and trying to wash down the Harvard port side just a little bit.
These next flags, half mile to go, they don't move. They're stakes in the ground, so he's going to have to go through his.
Well, interestingly, there's the pipe on the west side is basically invisible. It's got a dark flag, and it's. I had a hard time picking it up.
It's a blue flag, Andy. It's for you, man.
Well, let's not miss the story here because Harvard is coming back.
Harvard is making
significantly.
A move. They are now 2/3 of the length down. A couple of the Harvard kids just took a long look over at that Yale crew and then put his head down and started rowing again. And,
I said they had to change their position. They're doing that. It's basically 7:15 now into the race.
Yeah, they're getting, now Yale is responding, it looks like. It's so Harvard had their bow as high as the 6th man.
Yep. Yale is responding to that challenge, and I think a little of that might have been the steering that Woods had to execute, steering back to port to get around that invisible pipe.
Could have been.
And now Connell is back, and he's banging the side of the shell, and he's right up on the bow ball of the Harvard shell.
Yep.
That was a nice fight and counter from both these crews.
Yep, Harvard's still 38.5, so, and we're now running into the last 300 meters. So this is, for Harvard, this is do or die moment. For Yale, it's just parry, just push them back.
Yeah, they're at 35. You know, the wind seems to be either neutral or almost a little bit of a headwind, and that's a significant change from the first half of the race, so the athletes are having to deal with that as well. Yep. I'm telling you, Harvard is sticking right there. They're going to make one last hard push. Woods has to make sure his steering is on point, and here comes a Harvard response.
Harvard's starting to push into them. They're still at 38.5. Yale's still holding it down, holding back the sprint. Harvard's got their bow up onto the stroke seat now.
It's 8.5 minutes down. And Woods very calmly just figuring out his course. He's checking it, made a little steering adjustment there.
So it's, we're now getting in, and Harvard continues to push.
And here they come.
They're now onto the 6th man.
About half a length.
Down to a half a length. Now they've just got to go. They've got to sit up and go. They've got to treat this like a 2K finish. And they've got themselves up onto the 5 man.
9 minutes down. Both crews know it's time to go.
They can start to hear noise from the rock. And Harvard's now on the 3 man.
Harvard is making a good push. There's a little bit
of missed water
rhythm
between 3 and 2.
Yeah.
Yale's rhythm. Harvard is driving hard.
The seat might have come off.
Coming up. Yale may have problems. There's the 5 man is 6 man.
The 4 seat.
4 seat at Yale.
And
Harvard is blown by them.
They can feel it now.
Harvard's going to take it. They smell the blood in the water.
There might be a health issue in there in the Yale crew.
It's hard
you don't like to see that.
No, we don't. And it just reminds me of '99. That is. There we go. So Harvard takes his first race
in 9:49
with a very brave race to hang in that close, while Yale was very comfortable as an 8. Obviously, there were some other issues going on.
Yes, a dramatic race for sure, one that rowing fans will savor, particularly Harvard fans. Credit to them for hanging in and putting the pressure on Yale.